I like to work and I like to do good work. For work is the best friend I've ever known. It has brought me all the good things I have had, my farm, my cows and crops, everything. Hello, this is Palmer the coach and welcome to the Coaching Minute. Kiliacho mwanzo lazima kiwe na mwisho. Everything that has a beginning has an end. And today we are on to the 10th and last chapter of the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And it is titled, The Luckiest Man in Babylon. The quote I began by reading is by a guy called Megiddo, who was speaking after seeing some people working on their farm lazily. And he was very, very disturbed. This story begins with a man called Sharunada, who is carrying a young man from Damascus to Babylon. The young man is called Adan Gula, who is the grandson of an old friend of Sharunada's, a business partner called Arad Gula. This young man does not believe in work. He has been lazy in Damascus, making a waste of himself, because though his grandfather, Arad, was a rich man and a partner of Sharunada, his father, the father of Adan, had basically wasted all that his grandfather had left behind, and the young man was now poor. And because of how close Sharunada was with Arad Gula, he felt compelled to go to Damascus to seek this young man, and is wondering, how can I help this grandson of my old friend? And they are on the journey from Damascus, on their camels, and he's contemplating this, and this young man is asking him, why do you work when you are this rich? Work is for slaves. And Sharunada is setting out to convince this young man that there is honor in work and that work must be our best friend. And he begins to tell him about his grandfather and mentions that his grandfather was actually a slave. And the young man is livid. How can you call my grandfather, who was so rich and well-known and respected, a slave? And Sharunada tells him, cool your heels. Let me tell you the story. I was a slave too, and this is how it began. My brother, in a bar brawl, killed a man. Then I was bonded to the man's wife by my father so that my brother isn't executed as the laws of the land require. And I find myself chained to other people who are going out to be sold as slaves. And Megiddo, whose quote I read there before, told me, when we get to the slave market, please make sure that you go and work very hard to the slave master who buys you, so that he can value you, and out of that you will be able to redeem yourself. And they go to the slave market, and sure enough, the people who come to buy slaves are looking at them contemptuously, wanting people they can go and waste. And Megiddo himself very quickly manages to endear himself to a person who has a farm, and he says, I'm a good farm worker, I know this and that, and he quickly gets bought off, and he wishes Sharunada good luck. They are about to be sold to go and work on the king's wars, which was tedious and back-breaking work that used to get a lot of them killed by the taskmasters. When somebody comes and asks whether any of the slaves knows how to bake, and Sharunada, because he had known he must do everything to make sure he doesn't get sold as a slave in the king's work, comes to this man and tells him, you must be a very good baker. Why look for another baker who may not even be as good as yourself? Why not take a young man like me and go and train me how to make your cakes and bread, and I will be a very good hard-working man? And this baker looks at him and says, a good proposition. I'll give it a shot. And so he is fortunate to be bought by the baker, and the rest are taken off to the king's gardens. And when he goes, he follows the advice of Megiddo. He learns very quickly to bake cakes. He relieves his master of a lot of the work that he himself used to do, and his master is very, very happy with him, and he keeps paying him. Then he actually devises a plan. He tells his master, since I finish my work barely around midday, I have a plan. Why don't I bake an extra tray of cakes and I can be going hawking this in the market myself, then we can share the profits from these cakes. And the master says, that's interesting. You are a very, very hardworking young man. And they agree that of all the sales he'll be making from those extra cakes, 50% was going to meet the expenses of buying the flour and the cooking materials. And then the next 50% they would divide between them, so that 25% would remain with Sharunada, the young man, and the master would take 25%. And the young man sets out on this enterprise. And before long, he is selling many cakes. He describes having gone out and found some of the people that were sold with. One of them who was saying him he would shack work and wouldn't work hard. And he finds him so famished that when he offers him a piece of cake, he eats it in one gulp. And he had to run away because he thought if he lingers there, this fellow might even grab his whole tray. Long and short, he continues working hard and begins to earn and save money to be able to buy his own freedom. When you are sold as a slave, your slave master was given your title, but you could redeem yourself by paying what he had used to pay to buy you. And while he's working at this, unfortunately, his master begins getting comfortable now that he had somebody working and bringing in profits. He began betting in the betting houses and soon began getting into debt and falling into trouble. And unfortunately, one of the people whom he owed money finally was fed up because he was not being paid, and he came and took Sharunada as a slave because he had given his title as security to that man. He claimed him and went to sell him to the slave market again. That is why he calls himself the luckiest man in Babylon, because twice he had been taken to the slave market and twice he had been lucky. And this time he went and he was working on the king's plan to build canals, and they were getting very tired, hardly drinking even the water because it was very hot. Until one day, when a messenger came and told him that have been sent by your master to get you back to Babylon. When he goes to Damascus, when he goes, he finds Arad Gula, his old friend, whom he had helped by showing him when he was a slave that he could actually get himself free. He had been hesitant much as he had made enough money to buy his own title back because he had become comfortable living under his master. And this young Sharad had rebuked him and told him, you cannot have the means to buy your freedom and remain a slave. And this attached this old man, and sure enough, he had bought his own freedom and continued to prosper as a trader. When finally Sharunada goes back, he finds it was actually Arad Gula who had paid the debt that had made him get into trouble to go and be sold as a slave. And he told him that I wanted you free because the advice you gave me has been very useful to me. I am so happy I took my own freedom, and I want you to be free. And we can now be business partners. That's how Sharunada ends up finding pity on the grandson of Arad Gula, because they were traders and business partners until he himself had become as wealthy as he was. And when this young man hears this story, and that it was work that had made his grandfather live the life of slavery, and it was also love for work and wasting himself and not shirking work that had made even Sharad Gula the respected merchant that he was, the young man also decided that he was going to, from that day, choose work, apply himself, and make of himself a worthy subject. So the lesson from today is, yes, you may have been unfortunate and you may find yourself in dire circumstances, but hey, luck will come your way when you decide to make work your best friend. Whatever you find to do, go at it with all your might, love it, cherish it, and do it, if for no other reason, because you know how much good it is able to bring your way from its earnings. So make work your best friend. And that is the coaching minute for today. And that's the end of the review of the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. I do recommend that if you haven't yet, find a copy and read it yourself. You will love the stories. They are told with humor, and they are really, really interesting. And most importantly, take this walk of choosing to build wealth for yourself. As always, reach out for a helping hand, and if you can, hold someone else's too. Thank you.